king of German mercenaries.
Chapter 69, Grassroots Officer Training Program. After the draw, everyone left happily. But Marin's top general Schwartz came over worriedly. "Master, you have distributed 2/3 of the land, what will you do with yourself?" Privately, Schwartz still called Marin master, and in the army he called him boss. "It's okay, Schwartz, you probably don't know yet. My salt-making base now produces 1,000 quarts of refined salt every day," Marin revealed. Schwartz had been in Denberg these days, responsible for training soldiers and arranging defenses. Therefore, he didn't know much about what was going on in Yenchen, except that they were boiling salt there. 1,000 quarts. Every day. Schwartz was shocked. He knew how expensive salt was. How much profit would he make if he produced so much salt in a day? "Yes, I now have a profit of 600 gold coins every day. Do you think I still need to care about those acres of land?" Marin said confidently. "That's true, but, master, you don't have to divide up so much land. 2 ugrams per family is actually enough. 2 uglams is 4 acres, about 24 mu of land, which is enough for a family to eat and drink. Of course, according to the current land production in Europe, it is only enough for food and drink. There is no surplus. If there is a glutton like Khan in the family, there will definitely not be enough food. It's okay, don't worry about it. I want these soldiers to work hard for me. If I don't give them enough benefits, will they work for me at the risk of their lives? But if every soldier who surrenders to you is given 5 ugrams of land, there won't be enough land on the island." "Schwartz, I didn't say that we would distribute land to new soldiers who will join in the future." "What do you mean?" "I plan to train these 400 people into officers at the squad leader level. As for the lower level soldiers, I can recruit more later." 400 squad leaders. You want to recruit 10,000 troops? Schwartz was shocked. A squad has 25 people, 400 squads, that's 10,000 people. Even an ordinary duke can't gather 10,000 troops. Because there is not enough money. The aristocrats in the Middle Ages had limited output from their territories due to their backward agriculture. In addition, they lived a luxurious life, which led to the poor financial situation of the aristocrats. Those who could gather an army of 10,000 were basically very wealthy dukes or kings. Of course, there were also some who used serfs to make up the numbers. But the serfs were untrained and their fighting power was rubbish. They were easily scattered by the regular elite. Nowadays, when nobles fight, it has become popular to use a combination of knights and mercenary infantry. Even heavy cavalrymen who were apprentice knights can be hired. If serfs were used as cannon fodder to make up the numbers, they would definitely be abused, and it would also consume a lot of food. What's the big deal? My salt-making base can produce 210,000 gold coins every year. I can't afford to support an army of 10,000. Schwartz thought about it and realized that it was enough to support 10,000 troops. However, it felt strange for a barony to support 10,000 troops. Unless the young master wanted to expand. Schwartz suddenly perked up. If the young master wants to expand, he will definitely not stay on this small island. If he wants to expand, Schwartz thought about it and felt that the most likely place would be East Frisia. Because that was where Lady Mary's family originally controlled. However, if the young master takes back East Frisia in the name of Lady Mary, then Lady Mary's first heir should be young Master Adler. Schwartz was a little confused. "Okay, Schwartz, I'm going to give you an important task now. Master, please give me your orders. I want you to spend more time to train these guys into qualified team leaders. Can you do it? Train them to become squad leaders." How to train them to become squad leaders? Schwartz is now familiar with training soldiers, but how to train squad leaders? That's easy. You just let them take turns to be the team leader, right? It's that simple. It's that simple. Then how do we train their training ability? Our 400 people are all veterans and don't need training. This way, we won't be able to improve their training ability. That's easy. Aren't there thousands of able-bodied men on the island? During the slack season, we can pull all the able-bodied men out and let the soldiers train them in formation and discipline. Even children can be pulled out to practice formation and gain experience. However, you are not allowed to hurt the children when training them. Not training for combat. Train them to fight. If they can fight, what if they dislike me and rebel against me one day? Marin was furious. Training the serfs in formation and discipline only makes them more obedient and easier to command them to do things. If I train them to fight, what if these serfs want to revolt one day? I will be code. Okay, I got it, master. After saying that, Schwartz went out in a hurry. He wanted to complete the task assigned by the master and train these soldiers into qualified team leaders. The reason why we train these soldiers to be qualified squad leaders instead of qualified company leaders or even phalanx leaders is very simple. Because, except for Schwartz, all of these soldiers are illiterate. Illiterate people have limited comprehension and are not good at thinking. It is already the limit for them to be a team leader. Usually, they only need to strictly carry out the tasks given verbally by their superiors. But it is different for company captains or even phalanx leaders. They not only have to read written instructions and execute them, but also need to make minor adjustments to the phalanx or company they command based on the battlefield situation. For example, when the army's flank was breached, the phalanx commanders and company commanders saw that the flank was wide open and needed to command their men to respond without violating the general commander's orders. This kind of response was difficult for those illiterate captains to do because they were not good at thinking. Marin wants to expand his army, and he will definitely recruit some wandering knights from literate knight families to train as company captains. As for the phalanx leader, it is very important. Not only must he have cultural knowledge, but he must also be as reliable as Schwartz. Even if he is unreliable, he must move his family to his territory as hostages. Marin's reputation has gradually spread throughout the Holy Roman Empire under the emperor's propaganda. Presumably, there will be fans who will come to him in the future. By then, Marin plans to select a few knights to train as company captains and phalanx leaders. As for Schwartz, he plans to train him as a legion commander. When Marin told Schwartz about his plan, Schwartz was so excited that he trembled all over, the legion commander. That was a big man who commanded at least 6,000 people, a Roman legion. Generally, at least a baron could take this position. When Schwartz expressed his doubts, Marin told him indifferently, if his status was not high enough, he could just serve as the acting legion commander first. But, sir, I'm still just an apprentice knight. Schwartz said helplessly. An apprentice knight, not even a noble, is far from the minimum requirement for being a legion commander, a baron. Oh, I forgot about that. Let me put it this way. Now that I am a baron of an independent barony, I seem to have the power to grant knights to the territory. Let's put it this way. When I have time, I will invite my family and your family to the island and hold a loyalty ceremony for you to grant you the title of knight. Thank you, master. Thank you, master. Schwartz immediately knelt down on one knee with excitement, wanting to pledge his allegiance on the spot. You know, the difference between a titled knight and an apprentice knight is the difference between a noble and a commoner. This difference is simply the difference between heaven and earth. Being knighted is equivalent to being a noble. Schwartz couldn't help but be excited. Don't rush to pledge your allegiance. The ceremony isn't ready yet. Haha. Schwartz stood up and smiled awkwardly. Since I want to make you a knight, I must give you a manor. My fiefdom is small, so I can't give you a large manor for the time being. How about this? After a while, I will let those serfs cultivate 100 ugrams of land and give it to you as a fiefdom. You won't think it's too little, right? How could it be? It's already pretty good. Your father, young master, only had 100 ugrams of farmland. How could Schwartz think it was too little? He felt that he had made a fortune just to have a noble status. Don't compare yourself to the old man. He has a coal mine as his foundation. However, before the coal mine was developed, the family was indeed not rich. Being a knight is the greatest reward, sir. I am not picky. Let me tell you, you won't lose out. After using the Eastern farming technology, 1 acre of land can yield at least 200 pounds of rye. Master, what is an acre of land? How big is it? Schwartz obviously didn't know the unit of area, acre. 1 acre of land is 1/12 of a ugram. 1 ugram equals 12 acres, so 1 ugram would produce more than 2,400 pounds of rye. Is it that high? Schwartz was shocked. This yield is definitely more than a quarter higher than the yield in Europe, during a bumper harvest. No more, no less. Then I didn't send it. Yeah, it's sent out. Stop thinking about it and go train those bastards. Yes, master. After saying that, Schwartz went out with full energy, vowing to train those soldiers to death. Chapter 70 Supporting the Development of Fisheries. By the end of April 1496, agricultural activities on Texel Island had basically stopped, spring plowing had basically ended, and only sporadic land reclamation had taken place. But even if the land was reclaimed, it was not in the planting season. Therefore, the reclamation of new land was not tight. After developing salt boiling and innovating agriculture, Marin planned to visit the two fishing ports of Texel and Oudeschild to see how the fishery industry on Texel Island was developing. Marin attaches great importance to fisheries, not to say that he attaches importance to fishery production. Rather, Marin pays special attention to the young fishermen who grow up in fishery activities. These people are the best reserve sailors. As a sailor, in addition to being able to operate the sails, you also need to adapt to long-term life at sea. On ocean-going ships, sailors often do not go ashore for several months. For people who are used to living on land, it is really unbearable. Only the children of fishermen who fish at sea every day can adapt to long-term life at sea and are less likely to get sick during long voyages. Seeing that the age of exploration had already begun, Marin was absolutely lying when he said that he didn't want to have a share of it. Spain and Portugal were not yet established at this time, and if he joined earlier, he could also rise to become a strong power. You know, conquering the New World and opening up the Indian route are not difficult. The Spanish conquered the Aztec Empire of Mexico with less than 1,000 people. And Pizarro conquered Peru with only 180 people. Perhaps Marin didn't have the same luck as Pizarro did when he met the stupid Inca king, but he could still easily dispatch thousands of people. Moreover, Marin had studied in his previous life that the knights and muskets played a big role in the success of Cortés and Pizarro. Plate armor knights were swept into the garbage dump by muskets in Europe, but they were very effective against the Indians in America. The Incas had never seen a horse and did not know what cavalry was. The Aztecs were asking for trouble by spreading the myth of the white god. In addition, the cavalry and muskets frightened the Indians. Therefore, it was easy and pleasant to conquer these uncivilized Indians. The key point is that people of this era did not know the depth of the Indians. Cortés attacked the Aztec Empire purely out of greed and recklessness, but he did not expect to succeed. Pizarro was even more of a gambler who didn't care about his life, but he won the bet in the end. Marin didn't need to gamble, he knew the Indians' weaknesses. At that time, he only needed to send a group of knights to crush the Indians. You know, Pizarro only relied on dozens of plate-armored cavalry to defeat the thousands of troops brought by the Inca king. Obviously, the Incas were scared to death by the cavalry, not because they were really defeated. Therefore, Marin had no shortage of information and knew that there were many opportunities ahead. But first, he had to have a ship and skilled and loyal sailors. Although Marin could hire sailors from other countries, he did not intend to do so. Because hiring sailors from other countries could easily lead to the risk of leaking secrets. If other powerful countries knew that he had conquered a wealthy country with just a few hundred people, wouldn't they send a large army to steal the business? Therefore, in the early stages of colonization, it is best to use trustworthy sailors and soldiers. In the later stages, when you become stronger and are no longer afraid of being coveted by other countries, it will be no problem to recruit sailors from other countries. And who can be more reliable than the fisherman under his command? His family is working for him, so who dares to betray him? If he dares to betray, his whole family will be hanged. Out of concern for the origin of the sailors, Marin and his men cordially visited the fishermen in the two fishing villages of Thorlunch and Oudeschild. The two fishing villages are very small, with only about 100 people in each village. The two villages together have about 200 people. And there are no more than 30 young fishermen available. What made Marin happy was that many of these fishermen were Frisians. There were many Frisians along the coast of the Netherlands, and many of them were engaged in fishing. More than half of the fishermen in the two villages were Frisians. Frisians spoke Frisian, which Marin knew. Therefore, it was easier to communicate with the fishermen than with the townspeople and farmers on the original island. Marin could not understand the language of the Dutch on the island, so he often brought the island's priests as translators. The priests all spoke German and Latin, otherwise, Marin would not be able to communicate with the local Dutch. Using the fluent Frisian language he learned from Lady Mary, which is actually similar to English, of course, it is medieval English, not the modern English that Marin learned. Marin had a cordial conversation with the fisherman. "Aben, a Frisian fisherman, is fishing hard?" Marin asked, patting the shoulder of a young bald fisherman who looked like Robin. Aben, who is only 20 years old and has lost all his hair, said shyly, "My lord Baron, fishing is hard work, but I have to go, or I'll go hungry." "How many fish can you catch at one time?" "Every time we go out to sea, we come back and sort the fish, and there are probably several hundred pounds of fish." Sorting. It means keeping the edible fish and throwing away the inedible ones. Not all fish in the sea are edible, some are poisonous. Marlin nodded. This is just like pufferfish, a poisonous fish that cannot be eaten. Some fish, although not poisonous, taste terrible and no one will buy them. Oh. By the way, why does each of your boats only catch a few hundred pounds of fish each time? As far as I know, after excluding the inedible fish that need to be sorted out, you should catch at least 100 to 200 pounds of fish in one net, right? Do you only catch 2 or 3 nets a day? Huh, Lord, it's not that we can't fish more, nor is it that we don't want to fish more. It's just that. What is it? Tell me about it. We don't have enough salt. Young Aben touched his bald head and sighed. Salt. Speaking of salt, Marin laughed. However, he suddenly remembered that the salt produced by his salt-making base was basically sold to the Wiggins Chamber of Commerce, and only a part was left for himself and the army. It seems that there was no preparation for the residents of the island. Thinking of this, Marin smiled awkwardly. Yes, salt. Baron, salt is expensive now, a quarter of salt costs 5 or 6 shillings. We fishermen are very poor, how can we buy much salt? Even if we catch a lot of fish, it will be useless. Because if there is not enough salt to pickle, the extra fish will rot and stink. Selling salted fish is profitable, right? Why not use the money to buy more salt? Because of the Catholic fast, Europeans are not allowed to eat meat for a long time. Therefore, salted fish has become an important food during the fast. My Lord Baron, the profit of salted fish is very low. Although the price of salted fish is not low, the cost of salting salted fish is also high due to the high price of salt. Add to that the transportation cost of salted fish, so we can't make much money from selling salted fish. But if the price of salt drops by 1 or 2 shillings, our profit will still be good. So if the price of salt were reduced to 4 shillings, your profits would be much higher. Yes, if the price of salt dropped to 4 shillings, all fishermen would be much better off. Well, let's do this. I've just opened a salt-making base. I'll ask them to expand production, and then I'll sell sea salt to you at 4 shillings per quarter. That should make your life much better, right? Of course, thank you, Lord. However, the benefits will not be reflected in the short term. Because we can't spend too much money to buy salt for the time being. Bald Aben said honestly. It's okay. I can lend you salt. When you sell the salted fish, you can return the equivalent amount of money. Thank you, Lord. Aben quickly bent down and bowed to express his gratitude. Don't thank me yet. By the way, is there any problem with your fishing boat? Yes, sir. Many poor fishermen cannot afford fishing boats. Even those who can afford fishing boats, like our family, can only use small boats to fish in shallow seas like the Wadden Sea where the wind and waves are relatively small. If there were big ships, we could go to the big fishing grounds in the North Sea. There, a big ship can bring back a full warehouse of fish in one trip. Full warehouse? Marin also had some expectations. Yes, there are many more fish in the North Sea fishing grounds than in the Wadden Sea, but the wind and waves are stronger, so we need bigger ships. Okay, I can set up a fund and lend it to you. You can join together to buy a medium-sized fishing boat and go out to sea to fish. What's the point of a few hundred pounds of fish? If you want to fish, you have to return with a full load every time you go out to sea. Thank you so much, sir. Aben and other Frisian fishermen expressed their gratitude. You're welcome. Marin responded modestly, but he was thinking in his heart, I won't lose money if I sell a quart of salt to you for 4 shillings, and the profit is still huge. Moreover, if we don't support the development of fishermen, where will the sailors come from? Chapter 71, Building the Lighthouse Pier. Standing on a high hill by the sea in the fishing village of Thurench, looking at the busy Mars waterway in the south, Marin suddenly felt that building a trading port in Thurench was a good choice. Your Excellency Baron, the Mars Channel in the south is the main waterway for merchant ships in Amsterdam, said Dallian, the auxiliary bishop of Texel Island who accompanied the inspection. Do Amsterdam merchant ships mainly go out to sea through here? I've looked at the map, and it seems that the gaps between other islands in the West Frisian Islands are larger than the distance between Bitsel Island and Den Helder. Wouldn't a wider waterway be more suitable for going out to sea? Marin asked puzzledly. Baron, you don't know. Although the distance between other islands is wider than the Mars Channel, to pass through those channels, you must pass through a very shallow sea, the Wadden Sea. The Wadden Sea is very shallow and has many shoals. If you don't take a specific route, a large ship with a deep draft is likely to run aground in the Wadden Sea. But if you take the Mars Channel, it is not easy to run aground. The water depth here is deeper than most areas of the Wadden Sea. I see. Then the Mars Channel is the main passage for Amsterdam's merchant ships to go out to sea. It should be said that it is the only way for the large merchant ships from Amsterdam to go out to sea. Those small merchant ships, with shallow draft, can still easily enter and exit the Wadden Sea, just like those small fishing boats. How is the size of a ship determined? A ship that is larger than the flagship Santa Maria led by the Italian Christopher Columbus in Spain is basically a large ship. Assistant Bishop Dallion said uncertainly. There was no such thing as tonnage in the Middle Ages, so we could only find references. Dallion had been to Spain to visit an old friend in the religious community, and happened to have seen the flagship that Columbus set out on. Columbus's discovery of India was very famous, so Dallion used it for comparison. Santa Maria? That's a displacement of more than 100 tons. Marin had never heard of Columbus's specific deeds in this life. However, he knew about it in his previous life. Anyway, a ship larger than the Santa Maria is likely to run aground in the Wadden Sea. A ship smaller than it is not likely to run aground in the Wadden Sea, said Dallion, who has been on Texel for many years and is nearly 50 years old, so he has seen a lot. Marin nodded, indicating that he understood. The draft of the Santa Maria was only 1.98 meters, which was incomparable to the later sailboats that had a draft of several meters. In other words, the safe draft in the Wadden Sea was about 2 meters. Of course, that was without surveying the route. If the specific shoals were surveyed, navigation marks and lighthouses were set up, and the appropriate route was chosen, the large ship could actually sail the same way. Bishop Dallion, why is there no lighthouse here? Marin asked curiously. My Lord Baron, generally only large ports have lighthouses. Why? Only large ports have a large number of ships coming in and out, so there is a need for lighthouses. For example, Terhalensche and Den Helder across the way are both small fishing villages. Is it necessary to set up lighthouses? We don't need it, but don't the people of Amsterdam need it? Sir, the people of Amsterdam have no control over the land here. Only the local lord can decide whether to set up a lighthouse. Moreover, the construction cost of a lighthouse is high, and the maintenance cost is also high. Every night, a blazing fire must be maintained, which consumes a lot of firewood. A lighthouse needs a large flame to create enough light. Firewood has a high flame and high brightness, which is just right. Coal, on the other hand, has a low flame, and many of them are dull blue flames, which are not suitable for burning on a lighthouse. What about the benefits? If Thornhill built a lighthouse, many ships would definitely choose to dock here. However, Baron, Thornhill only has a fishing pier. If you want to become a commercial port, you must build several more long bridge piers that go deep into the sea. After staying at the seaside for a long time, Dallion has also become experienced. That makes sense. How much does it cost to build a lighthouse? What about the dock? Marin had no experience with these things. It costs about 800 gold coins to build a 10-story ordinary stone lighthouse. In the future, the fuel consumption every night is estimated to be 10 gold coins. And if we build 3 long stone bridges, it will cost about 1,000 gold coins. The main cost is to import stones from outside and hire stonemasons and bricklayers. Just less than 2,000 gold coins. It's very cheap. Marin curled his lips, indicating that he was not under any pressure. Ah. Auxiliary Bishop Dallion was silent. What could he say to a rich man? After some investigation, Marin found that Terhalensche was indeed an excellent sheltered harbor with sufficient depth. It faced southeast and was not easily threatened by the westerly winds on the North Sea. Therefore, Marin decided on the plan to build a lighthouse and a pier on the spot. The lighthouse was built at the end of the hilly peninsula that extends into the sea in the south of the Turbulent Bay. Under the guidance of the lighthouse, ships can smoothly enter the turbulent port at night. At the same time, the lighthouse can also provide certain direction guidance for ships sailing on the Mars waterway. However, his financial manager, Kohler, was busy looking for the families of 400 soldiers and had no time to handle this matter. Schwartz, on the other hand, was a typical military officer and did not understand civil affairs. As for Marin himself, he didn't have the time to personally supervise the construction of the lighthouse and the pier. Marin suddenly thought, should we recruit more talents? In fact, most of the original officials on the island had evacuated after Marin took over. Because those people, especially the educated ones, were subordinates of other nobles and could not work for Marin. The few local officials who stayed behind could be village chiefs or something, but they had to find educated people to do specific things. First of all, the so-called officials in the local area were all illiterate. In fact, they were all followers of the officials sent from the mainland, and they were professional errand runners. In the Middle Ages, only children from noble families, clergy and wealthy families had the opportunity to receive education. Noble servants also had some opportunities to receive education due to work needs. Most of the common people had poor family economic conditions and even had trouble eating. How could they afford to send their children to school, therefore, even when selecting talents, you must choose from the children of nobles and wealthy families. As for the priests, they are the Pope's subordinates, and they cannot return to secular life and cannot serve secular lords. This made Marin start to think about whether to promote compulsory education on the island. However, among his subordinates, only Schwartz had read books, and Kohler could recognize a few words. But there was really no one suitable to be a teacher. He could be a teacher, but it was a waste of talent. Moreover, he would have to fight wars and build territories in the future, and there would be a lot of things to do, so he would not have much time to teach. Chapter 72, Fame. The transmission of messages in the Middle Ages was very slow, because it was a backward era where transportation basically relied on walking, communication basically relied on shouting, and heating basically relied on shivering. A few months later, the great reputation that Marin had earned on the battlefield in Italy spread to the northern part of the Holy Roman Empire. At this time, Marin finally became the #1 big star in the empire. The princes in the northern part of the Holy Roman Empire are basically opponents of the emperor. These princes will naturally not cooperate with the emperor's propaganda. Because promoting Marin means promoting, there are many benefits to serving the emperor. Such propaganda is equivalent to pushing all young warriors to the emperor. As the representatives of the imperial parliament stationed in Vienna saw, many young people in Austria and Swabia followed Marin's example and joined the emperor's army, or sought to join. This is what the local princes who opposed the emperor did not want to see. Therefore, although these princes did not openly oppose the promotion of Marin, they could not help but trip him up secretly. Therefore, it took several months for Marin's fame to spread throughout the Holy Roman Empire and caused a wave of enthusiasm. What a great knight! He was only 17 years old, but he could achieve such great military achievements and was even named a baron. Some young wandering knights instantly regarded Marin as their idol. Because Marin and their origins are so similar, very down to earth, and easy to resonate with them. Marin's deeds sound very inspiring. For those miserable young wandering knights, hope is slim. But Marin's deeds provide them with a reference. Why don't I learn from Marin? They didn't know that the reason why Marin could achieve such brilliant results was based on the fact that he was a time traveler. The last time he defeated the French, he clearly used the powerful advantage of information asymmetry to bully Charles VIII, who was fleeing. If they were to fight head-on, could Marin's 1,100 new recruits compare with the French knights who had practiced martial arts for more than 10 years? However, it doesn't matter, people always like to ignore their own shortcomings and focus on their own strengths. Even if they don't have any strengths, they can still think of some unfounded strengths for themselves. This is the origin of narcissists. Therefore, no one cared that Marin won by trickery. Moreover, when the emperor was promoting it, he did not specifically state that Marin succeeded by a surprise attack, but said that the two armies happened to meet. Therefore, the young people all think that, I work for the emperor. Even if I am not as lucky as Marin and cannot become a baron, I can still become an officially titled imperial knight. This is exactly what the cunning Maximilian I wanted to see. The Habsburg family had a relatively high prestige in Austria within the Holy Roman Empire. Burgundy had a relatively low prestige because it had just taken over. In other places, due to the malicious anti-propaganda of the princes, its reputation was not very good. Therefore, the number of German warriors willing to serve the royal family was relatively small. Marin was born in the Count of Mark. Although Count John II of Mark was not against the emperor, his relationship with the emperor was definitely not good. Because the emperor had always been committed to emulating France and intended to levy a daily tax throughout the empire to supply the needs of the empire's core. However, Maximilian I's idea was opposed by almost all independent lords. Because the emperor's universal taxation throughout the empire was equivalent to touching their purses. Moreover, the emperor had stronger financial resources and power, so how could he wipe out these princes? Marin was born in an area not controlled by the royal family, and he was a hapless wandering knight. Such a character is very representative. Because there are countless knight families in the entire empire. And often a knight family will not only give birth to one boy. Therefore, there are many wandering knights. Under the anti-propaganda of the princes, many wandering knights never thought of serving the emperor. Because, in the private propaganda of the local princes, the emperor was described as a greedy, stingy bad guy. It is said that serving the emperor would not get wages because the emperor was poor. This is not completely false. Moreover, the emperor was unwilling to grant noble titles to those who served him. Therefore, many wandering knights who came from the areas ruled by local princes would rather be unemployed and wander around, doing odd jobs, than serve the greedy and stingy emperor. However, the appearance of Marin overturned the malicious propaganda of those princes and made many wandering knights realize that serving the emperor also had a future. Most of the wandering knights did not believe Marin's deeds when they first heard about them, because Marin's deeds were too legendary. However, many wandering knights near the Mark Kingdom simply rode to the Hoffman Manor in Bochum to verify the authenticity of the news with old Hoffman. As the new Baron's father, old Hoffman naturally swore that these were all true, and swore by the honor of God and the knight to be responsible for every word he said. Then, many wandering knights learned that the news they heard was completely true and had been confirmed. Then, the verified news spread throughout the empire. Everyone finally believed that the emperor was not lying. As a result, Marin became famous, and the young wandering knights were excited. Then, many young knights who were confident that they were not inferior to Marin rushed to Vienna with their dreams and asked the emperor to take them in. The emperor was obviously in pain and happiness. He was busy asking for ransom from the French, so how could he have the time to care about these young people? Moreover, if the ransom was not collected, he would not have the money to feed so many people. In addition, this period was a truce and there was no need to recruit people. Therefore, among the many wandering knights gathered in Vienna, only a few who were particularly outstanding were absorbed by the emperor. Most of the remaining people were left stranded in Vienna. Many wandering knights who had been wandering for a long time were accustomed to doing some chivalrous acts such as robbery, which made the public security in Vienna much worse. But the emperor did not dare to suppress these wandering knights, because if he used violence to send them away, it might cause his reputation, which he had established throughout the empire through the publicity of Marin, to deteriorate again. Because these suppressed, wandering knights would definitely say bad things about him when they returned. And the knights in the Middle Ages basically controlled the right to speak in the lower classes of society and had a high credibility. Therefore, Maximilian I could only try his best to appease those irritable wandering knights, write some blank checks, and try to coax them back. But on the other hand, the emperor was secretly delighted that so many wandering knights came to him for help. Therefore, the emperor is currently painful and happy. The big star, Marin, who was vigorously promoted by the emperor, also became a superstar idol in the eyes of the young people of the empire, just like De Roi.